I'm going to encourage you to do certain things you're already doing because they're already improving testosterone levels. I'm not here to scare you and tell you what not to do. I'm here to feed the good behavior. I'm going to start off with the first one that makes the most sense: walking. Everyone's going to tout all these different exercises as being testosterone improving. I mean, walking might be the best. There was a study that was published in the journal Endocrine, and it took a look at various amounts of steps that were taken. They took a look at people that only walked less than 4,000 steps. They didn't have that much testosterone. And then when they looked at people that walked over 4,000 steps, they had less risk of what's called hypogonadism, so low testosterone. But what's crazy is that when they looked at people that walked over 8,000 steps, there was a significant improvement in testosterone levels and significantly less risk of hypogonadism. But what's really wild is for every 1,000 steps taken after that, there was a 7 nanogram per deciliter increase in testosterone. That doesn't sound like much, but consider this. If you walked an extra 10,000 steps per day, you could have an increase of 70 nanograms per deciliter, 70 points on your testosterone level, just by doing something that takes 20 or 30 minutes. Now, the potential mechanism here is probably body fat related. Like generally people that walk more have less body fat, or you're mobilizing lipids, which is making it so that the aromatase enzyme has less likely chance of converting testosterone into estrogen. And when you stop that feedback loop, you allow yourself to create more luteinizing hormone, which sends a signal to the Leydig cells to create more testosterone. So it actually does have a direct correlation. Let's move into the next exercise though. The number 2 thing that you should keep doing is squatting. Now, there is a caveat to this because just doing squats can have an improvement. But if we look at some literature, we find out some cool news. So the study that was published in the Canadian Journal of Applied Physiology took strength-trained people and non-strength-trained people, and they had them do 2 different kinds of squats. One set, they had them do a set where they could do 12 reps to failure. So appropriate weight to go all the way to 12 reps and fail at that 12th rep. The other side, they had do 8 reps, so they went to heavier weight, and they needed help with the last 4. So they failed at 8, and then they would have someone help spot them for a final 4 reps. So they kind of went beyond failure. Well, there was a 40 to 55% increase in all groups. So just squatting alone, whether strength trained or not previous strength training experience, big increases in testosterone. However, the group that had the heavier weight that needed additional help, they had a significantly higher testosterone level. And in that particular group, it was even higher in the group that was previously strength trained. So the more conditioned and experienced you are, the more testosterone you're going to get out of that. One thing to note though, is that this is a temporary increase. We're talking 1 to 2 hours post-exercise. So it's not something that's gonna, go forever. But if you can incorporate squats into a daily routine, arguably if it's really heavy, it's even better, or at least beyond failure, that is going to add up and drive up your average. Number 3 is eating eggs. We've talked about this before, but there is a very interesting study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research. It had people eat whole eggs or egg whites. And what they found is that the people that ate the whole eggs had significantly higher testosterone levels. What's even more interesting about this is that this happened regardless of the amount of muscle mass. So even skinny people with barely any muscle, when they were eating eggs, whole eggs, they had a higher testosterone. So it's not happening in the whites. It's happening probably as a result of the cholesterol, which is absolutely critical when it comes down to the synthesis of testosterone. But we also overlook other things. Vitamin D is also extremely important when it comes down to testosterone, as are omega-3s when it comes to like cell fluidity and the ability for signals to be received properly, particularly when you're talking about luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormones sending signals to ultimately produce testosterone. There's also quite a bit of a link between protein intake and testosterone levels. So although we could say, yes, it's the fats and the cholesterol, there's also more protein when you're also eating the whole egg. So adding the protein in and aiding in recovery, not to mention the healthy cholesterols and the healthy fats, that could be absolutely critical. For what it's worth, I put a link down below for 30% off Thrive Market. You can get all of these different things like you would get at the grocery store delivered to your doorstep, and that's a 30% off discount link. They are a sponsor on this channel. They are what allow us to keep doing this content at the rate that we do it. But because you use that link, you save 30% off and get a free $60 gift. So that link is down below. Not to mention, I also have my products that I released with them, my nut butters, my hazelnut chocolate butter, my cinnamon Brazil nut butter, and my macadamia nut butter. That's all sweetened with allulose, and they're delicious dessert butters. So check them out, top line of the description underneath this video. Okay, the fun one, the one you've been waiting for. Sex increases testosterone. And this is interesting because so many people will say that no FAP is actually the way to go, right? Like zero sex is gonna increase your testosterone. Okay, there is some evidence that suggests that, but most of that evidence is very invasive based. And think about it. If someone's gonna come test your testosterone levels right after you have sex and they're coming charging at you with a needle, that's pretty invasive. And unless you're into that kind of thing, it's probably going to drop your testosterone levels anyway. So now we look at other literature and we see kind of the opposite. This one was published in Archives of Sexual Behavior. It had people go to a sex club. Okay, and what they did is they had people watch, 26 people watched and 18 people participated. Well, there were testosterone increases in both. Okay, the people that watched had an 11% increase in testosterone, but the people that participated had a 72% increase in testosterone, leading us once again to believe that actually stimulating the action can get things moving even more. And you might find in your own personal life that the more that you do it, the more things start to kind of work. And that's the case for a lot of people I've talked to. Now, the next one is one that Andrew Huberman has talked about, but we have a little more literature on it now. It's pretty interesting. Specifically, UVB light exposure from the sun. Now, we have seen in rodent models that there's this thing called the skin-brain gonadal axis, which is exciting, but we don't always take rodent model stuff to the bank, okay? But there were human models that were looked at too. They found that UVB light exposure in human models, like in couples, increased romantic passion, but also increased testosterone levels in the men. And if you back this out mechanistically, what's potentially happening is there is a gene known as P53 that gets activated by UVB light. And it's been speculated for a while that this was the reason. Huberman has talked about that. But in rodents, what would happen is they'd knock out this P53 gene. So they'd go through a P53 ablation. So they would no longer have this gene. At that point, UVB light had no more impact on their testosterone levels. Nothing. So what we have now speculated is that UVB light activates this P53 gene. This P53 gene then stimulates, the expression of this gene stimulates the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone from the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland to release more. And when this happens, you have more testosterone. But it also seems that there may be a combined synergistic effect with the vitamin D that we're getting from the sun as well. And when you think about it from a logical perspective, it makes sense. Like, we're out in the sun, it's times that we'd probably be with other people and we'd be having connection. There's a lot of synergistic things that are going on, but much of it comes down to this P53. So get that UVB light. Even though that's the one that burns you, you just gotta be a little careful there. Next up is one that you're already doing, but I want you to try to do it better. Sleeping, but hear me out on this, specifically REM sleep. Okay, first of all, there was a study that was published in JAMA, and what they did is they had people do a sleep study where 3 nights they slept 10 hours, and then for 8 nights they restricted sleep to 5 hours. They predominantly lost their REM sleep. That was the one that took the hit the most. And when they did this, their testosterone levels decreased during the day markedly. But then if we look at another study, they did a fragmented sleep study where they broke up sleep a lot. They just woke them up all the time, and they found there was a direct correlation between the reductions in REM sleep and testosterone. And only when you would reduce REM sleep was there a reduction in testosterone. So what you need to do for your sleep is you need to do everything you can to maximize your REM sleep. This means getting cool, making it cool in your room. This means trying to maybe take a hot bath or a sauna before bed so your body does cool. Try to use blackout curtains. Try to wear an eye mask. The darker that it gets, the quicker you can get into REM. Cut out the alcohol. The alcohol is going to crush your REM sleep. Doing any kind of high intensity type training a couple hours before bed or a few hours before bed is going to crush your REM sleep. Even if you feel like you're getting deep sleep, it's the REM that impacts the pituitary and the hypothalamus to allow testosterone production to occur. These are simple things you're already doing, and things that have evidence behind them that if you do more of them, will increase it more. So backing it all out, we've got sleep, we've got eggs, we've got sex, we've got walking, we've got squats, and we've got sunlight. Maybe we just eat eggs in the sun while also walking, while maybe occasionally doing squats, while maybe having sex in the sun and taking a nap in the sun. I'll see you tomorrow.